Good afternoon, Swadhi Kap. Maybe my presentation should have been the last one for the day, considering I'm talking about beverages and predominantly, alcoholic beverages. But I guess it really doesn't matter because we're in the virtual world and everyone is WFHing, and so you can drink anyway if you really want to. But the topic of the presentation in terms of you can't touch this. It's not about your 20-year-old university kid back staying at home and not touching the beer rations that you had when the Thai government locked down and banned alcohol. It's really about understanding the F&B industry and how it operates and how brands are built in this industry and what impact COVID-19 is having. All jokes aside, though, I mean, I think the impact of the alcohol ban that the Thai government had placed on the industry sealed the fate of many players in the industry, and I'm sure increased the anxiety of many of us out there, listening to this. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this picture. And, one of the hardest hit brands obviously was Corona beer at the outset of the outbreak. It probably wasn't helped by pictures like this that was spreading around. But I guess as the pandemic spread and we got into information overload and our appetite to know more and the whole fact and fiction came to surface, we started realizing, well, drinking Corona beer doesn't really cause you to get coronavirus. But in the initial stages, Corona had about a 38 to 40% global drop in sales. By the end of April, I think that came back, and most places had sold out. I know here in Thailand, by the end of the alcoholic ban, you couldn't buy Corona. Ironically, you weren't meant to be able to buy anything, but that's a different story. The reality is, though, all brands have been impacted, not just. And I know Kuntirapat was just saying, some of the hotel brand names have been impacted as well. But in the alcohol industry, all brands have been impacted one way, shape, or form. However, what research is showing is that the more established brands are not having as much of a downward decline as they're all declining, but they're not having as much of it as craft products. So your craft beers and your craft spirits are taking a bigger hit than your established brands of Heineken, of Singer, of Chang, whatever your alcohol of choice would happen to be. There's two reasons for this. First one is that they're seen to be less riskier. I know what a Heineken is going to taste like. I know what a Corona is going to taste like. But the craft beer that's made down the road by Joe Blow, I don't know what that's going to taste like, and that's going to cost me double the price of what this is going to cost me. So, in the current economic environment, I don't know whether next week I'm going to have a job. I don't know whether my income is going to be cut from that perspective. So what's happening is people are going for the more well-established brands, and they're going for more value conscious in terms of their decision making choices. But as I said, every brand has been impacted. Nearly all brands in the industry are built through restaurants, bars, pubs, and clubs. So if you're a craft brand, you start building this by creating advocates in these well-known establishments, whether they be advocates in the mixology world or whether you're a food product and you're trying to build it through chefs. It's up to them to try and help convince the consumers to make that choice. So most brands in the F&B industry are seen to be operating under a B to C model. The reality is, in the initial stages, it's actually a B2B model. So what do you do when the entire channel has been decimated? When your ability to communicate to through the advocates has gone. When COVID-19 happened, you saw signs like this in lots of places where establishments were shut down. You've got chefs, you've got mixologists who are standing there going, well, what am I going to do now? There's only so much that I can. The obvious one, obviously, was moving towards e-commerce and then having more direct conversations with the customers. So it was shifting from a B2B to a B2C. Where I see where I see the difference is it wasn't B2C in terms of business to consumer, but rather it's now brand to consumer. It's what are you communicating about the brand to the consumer that allows them to take some form of message to make a decision as to whether they want to search for you and buy you online. So the brand messaging in the industry really needed to change, and it really needed to be a lot more focused. So when you're a craft or you're any product in the industry, and the on-premise channel is ripped from underneath you, what choices do we have? More importantly, what changes were needed to be made in order for us to try and keep our head above water and just to survive? So look, in the industry, the home consumption had already been growing, pre-COVID-19. Once COVID-19 hit and everything went online, home consumption, went into overdrive. But it wasn't as simple as that. It wasn't as simple as me just putting my products onto an e-commerce website. Why is that? So I guess there's a lot of consumer behaviorism that has changed. So when you think about it, it wasn't a case anymore of on a Friday night saying to your spouse, I'm tired, let's stay home, let's just get takeout. It was at the end of the week, it's like, oh my God, we've eaten the whole entire menu of Grab. What are we going to do? Meaning that the consumer had shifted their behavior and their way of thinking. The other element, which is quite pertinent based upon the presentation that Kuntirapat had just given. Well, as I'm ordering and you look at these visuals, how assured am I that where this is coming from has met the hygiene requirements that I'm comfortable with? Great. My Grab driver sends it to me all the time, but where has he been before he's got to my place? And yet they're wearing masks, they may be wearing gloves, but what about the protocol that takes place in terms of in there? Additionally, in the alcohol industry, if you think about it, it's like, well, what price point am I as a consumer prepared to pay for a product that's delivered to me? So I'm buying food from my favorite restaurant down the road. I'm going to order a beer, I'm going to order a wine. Am I prepared to pay 120 baht, 120 baht for that Singer beer, where I know I can go to 7-Eleven and buy it for 49 to 50 baht, depending upon what you're drinking? In the cocktail world, am I prepared to pay the same price for a cocktail delivered to me in a jar at home versus I'm getting it in a nice vessel with the mixologist making it in front of me in a nice speakeasy somewhere in Tonglo? They're the answers that you need to address. The other thing is, I can go buy a bottle. I can make my own Negroni, or can I? Can I make my own whiskey sour at home? What's initially happening? When the lockdowns and the restrictions took place and people were staying at home, obviously beer and wine are the easiest ones. They're the most acceptable. You buy them, they're easy to have. After a period of time, people started wanting more. Why was that? I guess the beer and the wine was great in terms of numbing the pain of being at home full time with your spouse, listening to your children, sitting through Zoom calls for the whole day, listening to your boss trying to tell you to do something. So the beer and wine was doing that. But what it wasn't doing was it wasn't transporting you to the place that you go to on a Saturday night where you got dressed up and you go and try a cocktail, you go and try a drink that you wouldn't normally drink because that was your treat at the end of the week. So what happened? People started going, well, I want something different. I want something more than just the beer and the wine that I'm accustomed to. So the brand then had to deal with, how do I communicate, particularly if you're a craft product. If you're a spirit, a lot of the big players, whether you're the Johnny Walkers or the Bacardis or the Absolutes of the world, yeah, you can buy big bottles and stuff like that. But how many of us were going to be drinking a big bottle, thinking we were going to be able to complete a big bottle? That's probably a different answer now than what it was 6 weeks ago. But the answers that the brands needed to address were some of the concerns of safety, of cleanliness, of hygiene, as well as some of the needs that I had. How do I deal with the consumer who wants more than just drinking wine and alcohol. I will share an example shortly in terms of in terms of addressing that. So as we get ready to open up, and some places are opening up. So a lot of us at home are probably going, oh my gosh, thank you to whoever it is above that we believe in, whether it be God, whether it be Buddha, whether it be Allah, whether it be David. Thank God we're opening up again. But what's that opening up going to look like? A lot of people have been saying, okay, the new normal. Is this what the new normal is going to be? Is this what we really want to be going to when we actually step out and we're approaching restaurants and bars and clubs? That we'll be sitting there with masks, with hand gloves, with all this stuff. I personally don't like the term new normal because I feel it leaves it has a permanency to it, and I feel that it's about the acceptance of old with a slight tweak. I believe in this. Hopefully, this could be the interim towards something that's better for the future. Let's learn from our mistakes. So as we venture out, as we're starting to go back into the hospitality areas and industry, what are the expectations that consumers have? From research around different parts of the world, it's saying that around 50% of people will come out for special occasions, such as weddings, such as birthdays, if they need to, and a romantic dinner. Now, when you look at this visual, if this is going to be the romantic dinner that you're going to come out to, I guarantee you the contraceptive companies aren't going to make a lot of money going forward. I'll tell you that much. But what else is driving decisions is that what people are saying is, well, we don't want to go to big venues. We want to come to venues that are smaller in size, that has less patrons, that have people that I'm familiar with and I'm accustomed to. So that shifts the focus away from the bigger establishments, probably more towards local bars and local establishments that are near your house that you feel a bit more at home to. They've said the key thing is that physical distancing needs to be a key measure. We could argue as much, in terms of the guidelines and the criteria of what Thailand has implemented in terms of physical distancing. Unfortunately, I see what they're doing is just ticking the box, because if I go there with someone, if I go there with my son, I live with him, etc., I'm still forced to sit, behind a glass, a plastic barricade and on the opposite side. If I've got it, I've already got it. So I don't see that there's a great deal of thought being put into that, which has an impact on the hospitality industry going forward. Obviously, which I think is very good for the business of Kuntirapat, is obviously the having clear hygiene practices in place of masks and sanitizers and whatnot, in terms of having that increased cleanliness that needs to take place. Now, what is it also that consumers are looking to prefer is they're preferring the single usage items. They're preferring, possibly single-use cups. They're preferring single-use cutlery. I went to a place yesterday where they gave me plastic cutlery in a plastic package, as well as giving me the steel cutlery. And they're expecting minimal touch and minimal interaction. So, the whole push for getting rid of single-use plastic before COVID-19 seems to have shifted, because safety is now more of a concern than the environment, which is unfortunate. Other days of going to the pub, watching sports with your mates, going for a drink after work, going for a drink before and after a concert. That's if concerts come back, or when they're going to come back. These are the questions that are yet to be determined and answered. In Asia, we live in Asia. We're some of us are Asian. Food is an important part, and what do? Our food is all shared. So what's going to happen, when we start looking at that aspect? Moving specifically towards the alcohol and drinking, the cocktail and the mixology side, it is an art form. It's an artistry where, your favorite mojito, your favorite old fashioned, your favorite Moscow Mule, it's all made by people who do it as an art, and they do it with love, and they do it with their hands. Now, the industry is renowned. Mixologists are renowned for being some of the cleanest people. They're cleaning their hands all the time. Now, I'm not sure about, Jackery, who's making your Mai Tai down at Serene Beach, how clean his hands are, but I know mixologists generally have very clean hands going forward. But is that going to be enough from nowadays? Will they be required to wear gloves? And if they wear gloves by making this, look at making the ice cube. Look at slapping the mint leaves and the kaffir limes and squeeze. What's that going to do from a taste? The only way to answer this question is I can't answer it. Actually, a lot of you can answer it because you have to make the decision. What are you prepared to put up with, and what are you comfortable with in terms of moving forward? As I said earlier, I'll give you an example. So here's a brand that I've been working on, that I was working on pre-COVID-19, and we're obviously still working on them now. They had to pivot their thinking and changing their messaging. What you'll see in this thing is two videos. One video being, a traditional old-fashioned being made and having a look at that, and then you'll soon see the second one, which is an old-fashioned that is pre-made, pre-bottled, and basically sent to you at home. So we were selling this to hotels and the hospitality industry before COVID-19 took place, and it was being sold and messaged upon. It was consistent quality, it was convenient, and it was very efficient. However, the messaging has now needed to shift and needed to change because of the fact of what I mentioned before. How much touch point do you want? So let's look at the two. When you look at the two, how many opportunities were there in the first video for contamination? How many opportunities were there in the second video? So we've gone from yes, quality is always there, convenience is there, to basically now quality, safety, and touchless. And I think that's something that's going. This trend is mushrooming all around the world, and I believe it will be here to stay. So I believe there's always opportunities with every adverse situation. It's just about identifying them, capturing them, and adapting and converting, them to the benefits that you can make. So with that, I say drink responsibly, drink safely, and here's cheers.